They say the truth sets you free, but it didn't. Not for me, it crushed everything. I had just gotten home from the hospital, my body bruised but still whole. My husband was still sedated, broken bones and all, and yet somehow I was the one bleeding inside. Because 3 hours before we swerved off that icy road, he found me in another man's bed. I thought I could keep my secret buried forever. I thought I'd never get caught. I was wrong. And now I have to answer the one question that terrifies me most. What kind of mother cheats and wrecks her own family? He wasn't supposed to be home that night. That's what I kept telling myself over and over while I sat on the edge of the guest bed, my sweater still halfway on, heart racing, like I'd sprinted a mile. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, Ethan again. 10 missed calls. I should have answered. I should have run, but I didn't. Instead, I just sat there while the man beside me, a stranger in the shape of comfort, zipped up his jeans and quietly slipped out through the side door. I don't even remember his name, just his hands, his cologne, and the way I used him to feel like someone I hadn't been in years. Someone wanted, desired, alive. Then I heard the front door, Ethan's voice low and clipped. "Lauren, I swear my whole body stopped breathing." I crept down the hall like a thief and saw him standing in our kitchen coat, still on eyes scanning the room. When his gaze landed on me, it didn't explode. It froze, like something had broken inside him that couldn't make a sound. "What's going on?" I asked, too fast, too casual. He didn't answer, just walked past me. He knew, God, he knew, because there was a jacket on the armchair, a whiskey glass on the table, a belt on the floor. Stupid. I'd been so stupid. And then he saw the photo, a framed picture on the hallway shelf. Me, him, our kids, all of us grinning at last summer's camping trip. But now his hands were shaking. "You had someone in our house," he said, like a sentence he didn't believe. "In our fucking house, Lauren." I couldn't speak, couldn't cry, just stood there, paralyzed by what I'd done and how fast everything was collapsing. He looked at me one last time, not with rage, but with something colder. Disappointment. Then he turned, walked out into the Michigan snow, and slammed the door so hard the frame cracked. I didn't follow. He didn't come home that night, or the next. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just paced the living room in my robe, staring at the front door like it might swallow me whole. Every minute that passed without hearing from him twisted deeper into my chest. Then 2 days later, he walked through the door, not with a suitcase, not with rage, but with this terrifying calm that scared me more than if he'd screamed. His face was blank, no warmth, no fury, just done. "We need to talk," he said. I nodded, clutching the edge of the kitchen counter like it could keep me upright. "I want the truth," he said. "Not what you think I can handle. The truth." There was a pause, and then I gave it to him, or at least some of it. It wasn't serious. I didn't love him. It happened once. He didn't blink. Liar. And I cracked. "Okay," twice I whispered. But it didn't mean anything. You just what he snapped, finally showing emotion. "Needed attention, needed someone to make you feel good while I was killing myself for this family." I felt invisible. "Ethan," I said, voice shaking, "you were always at work. I was drowning with the kid. I made a mistake." "A mistake," he said. "You don't accidentally take off your clothes in our bed, Lauren." He stormed toward the door. I panicked. "I'm sorry I cried. Please don't leave. Please, we can fix this." He hesitated. Then without a word, he turned back and said, "Get dressed. I'm taking you to your parents." "You're not staying here tonight." I blinked. "What, you're kicking me out?" "No," he said, "I'm protecting our kids from seeing what happens when a mother destroys everything." That hit harder than any scream. We drove in silence. The snow outside blurred into a tunnel of white. I watched his knuckles tighten on the steering wheel. I wanted to reach for him, but I didn't dare. Then it happened. The truck came out of nowhere. All I remember is the flash of headlights, Ethan shouting my name, and the sickening crunch of metal on metal before everything went black. I woke up to a dull beeping and the smell of antiseptic. My head was pounding, my side ached like hell, and my mouth was dry as paper. A nurse hovered above me, adjusting something on the monitor. I blinked, tried to speak, but no words came out. "You're at St. Joseph's," she said gently. "You were in a car accident." "You're okay now." I wasn't, because the first thing I thought wasn't, "Are the kids okay?" It was, "Is Ethan alive?" I croaked his name. The nurse hesitated. That pause, just 2 seconds, shattered me. He's in ICU, she said, stable but unconscious. And just like that, the pain in my ribs disappeared, replaced by this searing guilt that burned down to my bones, because I had hurt him in every way a person can be hurt. And now he might never wake up to yell at me, or hate me, or even look at me again. I lay there for hours, unable to move, replaying everything. His face in the kitchen, his hands tightening on the wheel, his voice the last thing I heard before it all went black. Hold on. He tried to protect me, even when I'd broken him. Rachel came to visit that night. She brought soup I couldn't eat and pity I didn't want. I didn't think he'd find out like that, she said softly. You okay? No, I said. I deserve worse. Rachel looked at me, then sat down beside the bed. You need to stop beating yourself up. You're human. You were unhappy. No, I said. I was selfish. She didn't respond, just scrolled through her phone like this was just another drama to follow. That made something snap in me. He could have died, Rachel, but he didn't, she said too quickly. So maybe this is your second chance. Second chance? What does that even mean when the man I betrayed is lying in a hospital bed, breathing through a tube? I couldn't stand her voice anymore. I turned away and stared at the clock until she left. Then, sometime after midnight, a nurse peeked in and said, He's awake, he's asking for you. My whole body went cold. I didn't know if I had the right to face him, but I knew I had to. His room was quiet except for the soft rhythm of machines keeping track of his every breath. I stepped in slowly. Ethan lay still, eyes half-lidded, bruises, color in his face like war paint. One arm in a sling, the other resting limp on the blanket. He turned his head toward me, and I froze. He didn't speak right away, just stared. I thought you might not wake up, I whispered, barely holding it together. Shame, he muttered. Would have saved us both a lot of paperwork. It stung, more than I expected, but I deserved it, every bit. I'm sorry I choked out. He looked away toward the window, jaw clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. Are the kids okay? They're with my parents, safe. Scared, but okay. Silence stretched between us like an ocean. I didn't come here to beg. I said I just wanted to. Why her? That threw me. What? He turned back to me. Rachel, you could have cheated with anyone. Why her? My legs nearly gave out. I grabbed the back of the chair, heart hammering. Wait, no, I didn't. Ethan, I swear it wasn't Rachel. He laughed. A single bitter sound. Lauren, I'm not an idiot. I saw the messages. I checked your iPad before the accident. You'd been messaging him for months. Oh, God. He knew everything. I didn't want to hurt you, I whispered. But you did, he said, over and over, and now I can't even trust what's mine. That's when he dropped it. I ordered a paternity test for Sophie. I couldn't breathe, my world tilted. Why would you? Because she doesn't look like me, and because I don't know who the hell you are anymore. Tears filled my eyes. She's yours. Ethan, please, we'll see. He closed his eyes, dismissing me like I was noise. I stood there crumbling in silence. The guilt, the fear, the nauseating thought that if that envelope came back with the wrong answer, I might lose everything, not just my husband, but my child. The results came 3 days later, sealed in a plain white envelope. I sat on the front steps of my parents' house, the paper trembling in my hands. It felt like a bomb. Like once I opened it, nothing would ever be the same again. Inside, my father raked leaves in quiet disappointment. My mom avoided my eyes every time she passed through the living room. No one said it aloud, but they knew, everyone knew. I took a deep breath, tore it open, and read the words that shattered me for good. Probability of paternity 0.0. I couldn't even curse. The air left my lungs. My body folded in on itself. It felt like a death, only worse because the person dying was the mother I thought I was. The woman who believed she could still salvage something. Sophie wasn't Ethan's. I didn't even know who her father was anymore. A summer fling, I barely remembered someone I'd cut out of my life before the pregnancy even registered. And now Ethan had the proof he needed, the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. Still that night when I picked Sophie up from school, she came running out of the building like she always did, backpack swinging, eyes shining, arms wide. Mommy, I dropped to my knees and held her tight. For a moment, I forgot everything, forgot the test, the lies, the man I'd betrayed. All I knew was the feel of her heartbeat against mine and the way she whispered, "Can we get ice cream?" Of course, I said, voice cracking. In the car, she sang Taylor Swift off key and kicked her little legs in rhythm. I stared at her through the rearview mirror, my chest splitting in two. She didn't know. She couldn't understand. She was just 6. Back at my parents' house, I tucked her into bed, kissed her forehead, and turned out the light. But before I left, she whispered, "When's Daddy coming home?" I froze. "I don't know, baby. Tell him I miss him," she said, eyes fluttering closed. And in that moment, I broke, because I realized something far worse than losing Ethan. I might lose her too. I stood on the porch of our old house, gripping Sophie's test results in one hand and my wedding ring in the other. Ethan opened the door before I even knocked. "I figured you'd come," he said flatly. "I needed to talk." He stepped aside without a word. The living room looked exactly the same, except colder, quieter. Half the family photos were gone. The light had shifted somehow, like even the walls were mourning. I handed him the envelope. He didn't sit, just tore it open and read. I watched his face for any sign, anger, grief, disgust, but he didn't even flinch. "So it's true," he said softly. "Yes. And you don't know who the father is." I shook my head. He dropped the paper on the coffee table like it was trash, then sat elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. "You lied to me for 6 years. I didn't know at first," I whispered, and by the time I suspected, I was already trying to fix everything. "I didn't want to lose her. Or you. You lost me the night you climbed into someone else's bed. I didn't argue. I couldn't. I want full custody of Ethan," he said quietly. "You can visit, but I'm not negotiating this." I nodded, swallowing the scream in my throat. "And Sophie?" I asked, afraid to hear the answer. "I don't know." We sat in silence. Then finally he looked at me, really looked, and asked, "Did you ever love me?" The question cut deeper than anything else. "Yes," I said, "always, even when I was lost, even when I broke everything." "Then why?" And that was the hardest part. Not explaining what I did, but why. Because I was scared. I whispered. "Because you were perfect, and I was falling apart." I didn't know how to ask for help, so I grabbed at the nearest distraction. I hated myself every second. But I didn't know how to stop. His eyes welled. Just a little, then he wiped them and stood. "I want what's best for the kids," he said, "but I can't be what's best for you anymore." He walked me to the door, and just before I left, he said the one thing I hadn't expected: "She's not mine, but she's still my daughter." I sat in the courtroom, hands clenched in my lap, as the judge reviewed the custody agreement. My lawyer leaned over and whispered, "He's giving you weekends, alternate holidays. It's more than I expected." I nodded, numb. Ethan didn't look at me once. He sat across the aisle in a pressed navy suit, Ethan Jr. by his side, clutching a plush baseball glove. He was calm, stoic, the man I'd fallen in love with and the man I'd broken. Then the judge turned to Sophie. "She will remain legally under your joint custody," she said, "but physical residence will alternate bi-weekly unless otherwise requested." Ethan spoke up. "I'd like her with me full time." My heart sank, but then before anyone could object, he added, "If Lauren agrees, I need time to figure things out." I looked at Sophie sitting 2 rows back with my mother, drawing little hearts on her notepad. She smiled at me, a smile full of love, unbroken, untouched by the storm we'd created. I turned to the judge. "I agree." Ethan looked over, the first real eye contact in weeks. I didn't expect gratitude, but there was something else in his expression, something like relief, maybe even the tiniest glimmer of grace. Weeks passed. I moved into a small rental 10 minutes from the old house. Ethan started sending updates, photos of the kids, silly stories, small bridges rebuilt, one text at a time. Then, one chilly Saturday morning, I opened my door to find Sophie standing there, wrapped in a giant scarf, holding a paper bag. "Daddy says I'm staying with you this weekend," she said brightly. He packed muffins. Behind her, Ethan waited in the car. I bent down. "Hey, sweetheart, how do you feel about that?" She grinned. I want to watch movies in your bed and eat pancakes. I laughed. For the first time in what felt like months, the sound didn't feel fake. That night, she curled into my side, warm and small, and whispered, "Even if I'm not Daddy's real kid, he still loves me, right?" My chest tightened. "Yes," I said, "more than anything." She nodded, satisfied, then fell asleep. And I realized maybe, just maybe, I hadn't lost everything. Not yet. This wasn't the life I planned. It wasn't the marriage I'd promised. And it sure as hell wasn't the mother I thought I'd become. But pain has a way of burning off illusions until all that's left is the truth. I betrayed the man who loved me most. I broke a family we both fought to build. And I uncovered a secret that shattered more than just vows. It shook the roots of our identity. Sophie wasn't his by blood, but somehow she remained his by heart. Ethan didn't take me back. He didn't need to. What he gave me was something far more rare: the space to become accountable, the grace to stay a mother, and a chance not for us, but for the children who still needed both of us in their world. And that's what love looks like after ruin. Not perfection, not forgetting, just choosing to show up again, even when everything's broken. So if you've ever found yourself standing in the rubble of a life you wrecked, wondering if you're still worth saving, the answer is yes, but only if you do the work, only if you tell the truth, even when it hurts. If this story made you feel something: sadness, anger, maybe even hope, you're not alone. Stick around. There's more to uncover, more to feel. Subscribe, reflect, and join me next time as we dive into another family tale that'll pull at your heartstrings.